Business as Unusual is a thought-provoking podcast that explores the innovative strategies, disruptive ideas, and unconventional practices driving successful leaders and companies in the ever-evolving world of modern business. Subscribe, comment, and share for weekly inspiration with our host, Aicila.
Welcome to Business as Unusual, the podcast exploring innovative strategies and unconventional practices for success. Meet Meg, co-founder of People Cap Advisors, where she helps high-growth companies scale systems. A former Google HR M&A leader with 35-plus global acquisitions under her belt, she's a trusted advisor to private equity firms, CEOs, and boards. Meg's forthcoming book, Running the Gauntlet, Proven Strategies for High-Growth Leaders, was released in April of 2025. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
I am such a geek for structure. I was really excited about someone who was like, we need to talk more about how structure aligns with strategy, because I feel like that's
my love language. Structure is my love language, yes.
Because it's often conceptual rather than practical, and that's where things get kind of messy, I think. People have great ideas, but don't necessarily have the tactics to execute on them.
Yes.
And structure is a lot of the key to that. And especially innovators, I think they get part of why they're innovators is they push against the grain. And so finding that balance between the right amount of structure so that they can be amplified.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
One of the things you mentioned is the importance of context. A lot of times leaders will fail to consider their context or like what stage of growth they're in when they're making certain types of decisions and how to understand the vision and values within that. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. So we put together several years ago in our consulting practice a framework for understanding growth and how to scale an organization through and across 4 stages of growth. And that's really what our book is about, is about this framework that we call the Growth Gauntlet, because growth is really hard. And growing a business is very similar to the stages of development for a human. You've got to be able to crawl before you walk. And so there are stages where you're building that infrastructure in your organization, you're building that muscle memory, and some competencies, organizational competencies to be able to handle more complex things in your organization, more people, more transactions, more clients, more markets, more. And so when we talk about context, we want to understand where a business is in their stage of growth so that we can help to recommend what's next. Let me give you a concrete example about that. Recently, had to help hire a CFO candidate. We're filling a CFO position, interviewing CFO candidates. And the team that was doing the work came across a candidate who had just a stellar resume. And everyone agreed, this is the best candidate. We've got to bring this person on. This is the best resume we've seen. And I said, well, that's true. This is a great resume, but let's consider the context and what we're hiring this person for. We are not going to build a huge finance department around this person. This person is coming from a place where they are used to having a lot of people to do the work. They're used to managing a lot of people. We're talking about bringing somebody in who's going to actually close the books every month themselves, have a team of about 3 people. Yeah. Is this person going to be able to roll up their sleeves and do that work? And so while this is a great person and a great resume, it does not fit our context and our stage of growth. We need to look to find somebody who is earlier stage and who's used to doing the work, not managing it. Does that make sense?
Right. Oh yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like I've seen that demonstrated frequently. And the reverse is true as well. If you're an organization that needs someone who knows how to manage people and you get somebody that doesn't have that experience, it can be equally problematic because they're getting in everybody's way trying to do all the things instead of letting their team do the things that they know how to do.
Yeah. Another place we see that often is, and you and I were talking about it earlier, the founder personality. So the founder of a company tends to be very creative, tends to push against structure and boundaries, tends to be kind of an inspirational leader, and somebody who is a creator. And so once the business gets to a point where the proof of concept has been met and we're trying to now replicate a product that we serve to customers, productize that offering and make sure that we have consistency and predictability in the business and build operations to scale, that person who leads with creativity and emotion is not always the right person to lead in this next stage of growth. So sometimes it can work where the founder stays in the CEO position and hires a chief operating officer who has a lot of experience adding process to an organization and building those systems and scaling them. But sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes those folks who are the founders, sometimes we call them later in the process the chief distraction officer, because they're so bent on new things, what's new and what's next. It's hard for them to focus on, let's take what we've already done and make it consistent over time, because that's a different skill set. And so that requires a different leader. And at every stage of growth across the four, the CEO job description is really different. And so very rarely, I think it's less than 25% of founders make it all through all four stages of growth as the CEO.
Right. Well, and it's not just aptitude and skills; it's also interest. Like some people don't like that established experience. They want to constantly be forging into new territories, and we need people to do that. We just may not need them in that position at that time. I think that was one of the things when we very first started talking about you coming on the show and talking about what you're doing is how to handle that when you have essentially a chief distraction officer. How do you honor what they've brought to the organization and what they're doing, and also kind of move into that place of organizational structure and growth? Do you have any tactics or tips that you have for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where our model, our framework comes in really handy, because we're able to put that in front of a leader and say, this is what growth looks like. And this is where you are on this map. You are moving out of that startup phase that you did so well, and you're moving into an operationalized phase. And this is what the CEO job description looks like. There's a scorecard for a CEO in the operationalized phase. And if you get really down to brass tacks with people, they will often self-select out of that position, because that's not exactly what you're saying. That's not their gift. That's not their strength. That feels like, pure torture to be focused on building operations over running down new and exciting endeavors. And I think there's always a place for innovation in organizations. In fact, it's the old slogan, innovate or die. But we have to think about what innovation looks like at each stage of growth. Is it the primary focus like it is in the startup, phase? No. As we move through, it becomes, in many cases, structured innovation. We can look at innovation coming from incremental innovation coming from the front lines. How do we do things more efficiently, more effectively? How do we serve our clients better? And then, blue ocean thinking innovation, which may come from a group of people within a more mature organization. But it's always present, but it's not necessarily led entirely by the CEO.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a big part of it is that, when you're small and scrappy, you have a lot of agility, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then, and so it's that compromise as you grow, you maybe don't have the same level of agility, and you have the stability to follow through further to get more done. But it's really understanding which scope you're in. That makes a lot of sense to me. And do you typically work with the leaders or leadership team? Like when you guys come in, what's your primary setup?
Yeah, so we work with companies in two different ways. We often engage with private equity groups when they are about to make an investment in an organization. And so we'll come in and help do what we call leadership team due diligence. We'll come in and evaluate the team and start to think about what is it going to take for this organization to grow? Once you have deployed this capital and that capital acts as a catalyst for growth to the next level, do you have the team that can get you there to this next level? Or do you have people you're going to need to add, particularly as you're moving out of that startup phase? The things that we see most often are adding, for example, a professional CFO, a VP of sales who can build a sales team, a sales organization, a customer support organization, those types of things. We make recommendations around that and help just put together a plan for how the company can grow and scale post-investment. But we also work directly with CEOs of high growth companies. And a lot of times they reach out to us when they're stuck. So a perfect example is I'm actually working with a client right now who has grown a lot, and they're over 100 employees, and they have a part-time HR person who only really does sort of comp and payroll and benefits. And so they're in a place now where they really need talent management. And so we're helping them to figure out what does your organization need? How can we build an HR function that meets the stage of growth that you're in, so that you can evolve to this next level? So we try to solve problems and work primarily with CEOs and leadership teams. We work with HR folks as part of that, and then we do a lot of engagement surveys. So and sort of making sure we have the voice of the frontline employee in everything we do. We want to understand what's going on at the far reaches of the organization, so we can make change in the most practical way.
That sounds wise. I feel like that gives the broadest scope of understanding, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, what does success look like for you?
Well, for us, I think it looks like having our companies that we work with be successful, and navigating the chaos of growth, and moving from one stage of growth to the next without getting too bruised and battered along the way. It's really fun and gratifying. I think there are a couple of companies that we've worked with for 10 years or more, and to see the arc of their growth over that time period, and to see the way our influence has played out, and working with leaders who are coachable, who are eager to learn what's next and to grow to that next stage is really gratifying and exciting to see.
Yeah, I get that. What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Oh my gosh. Wear the bikini.
I feel that. You're fine. Just do it.
Oh yeah, that's easy. Maybe you're looking for something more work related.
No, that's fantastic.
I am pretty content with the way life has turned out, so I don't have a whole lot of regrets, I think, or anything like that. I do have 20-something-year-old children, and one teenager left. And so the advice I like to give people is that life is such a journey, and have a plan, but don't be so stuck on your plan that you miss opportunities that come by. Be able to grab onto something and go do it, even if it wasn't exactly what you planned on doing. Because I think for me, those sharp turns and those opportunities have really made the journey worth it. I mean, those have been the most exciting things that have happened to me. Not anything planned. Nothing I planned ever panned out, but all the other great things that happened, that made it, an exciting life. So
I feel that. I used to meditate a lot, and I had a meditation instructor who, when I was going on a solitary retreat, he said, "All right, we're going to make your plan." I was like, "All right." So we made our plan, and he goes, so you're not necessarily going to stick to it, but if you don't have something to deviate from, you don't have any place to discover. And I was just like, "Oh, that's a very meditative Zen kind of thing." Yeah. But I think about that a lot. It's like you have to have a plan, so you have some kind of direction. Yeah. But that allows you to get inspired to deviate. So it's intended not to be followed exactly, but also you're supposed to follow it. It's like that feels about right, the way life works.
Yeah, I'm also, just inherently kind of a connector and a collector of people. I love people, and I love all sorts of people. And I think that natural networking tendency has also made all the difference in my life. Just getting outside of my comfort zone and my bubble. And it seems like the opportunities that have come to me, I would never have predicted where they would have come from. I think you can't know where that next opportunity is. And so networking and getting out of your comfort zone is really important.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same. So much of my life is the result of wonderful people.
Yes.
Just showing up in a way that was never never planned, is it, or anticipated, and yet created so many beautiful things, both personally and professionally.
Yes.
So
Go to
I really feel
lunch and
that.
coffee with anyone who asks and figure out what they're all about and learn what their value is in the world. And then you
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah. Another thing you talked about that I super love is that you wish more people would ruthlessly align their structure with their strategy. Do you have any tips or thoughts or ways you want to share about that?
Yeah, I think we can all learn, and that's probably advice I need to take for myself as well. But I think if you want to successfully achieve anything, you do need to have some structure related to it. And I think about it in terms of accountability structure. Uh,
Mm,
so, you know, if I, I think about it in terms of health, that's probably the best example. If you want to be healthy, you have got to do lots of things. You've got to focus on if you have a New Year's resolution, say, I'm going to get healthy this year. There's not just one thing to do. You've got to eat better. You've got to drink more water. You've got to sleep better. You've got to exercise, both cardio and lift weights. I mean, your mental health. I mean, there's so many things
hmm
that go into an overall health profile. And the same is true with any company. And our model is based around what we call the 6 imperatives. And there are 6 levers that leaders can pull to make change in their organization. And those are, we start at the top with your focus, sharpen focus, and then strengthen leadership, calibrate culture, elevate talent, amplify communication, and align structures. And I think that the structure piece is so important. You have your strategy, and then you build structures to get there. And when I think about health in my own life, I think about, okay, I go to the gym, a few times a week.
hmm
It's just part of my routine. We eat in and eat broccoli this many nights, or whatever.
Right.
Moderate our alcohol consumption. We, make sure we get good sleep and have good sleep hygiene. There are all these things. And just like with the business, you never actually get there. I mean, you have to be always conscious of these things. There are daily decisions,
Yeah.
daily habits and structure that you put in place that help you to achieve these benefits over the long term. And so I think for organizations, it's important to have these kinds of structures in place so that you make sure your culture is what you want it to be, making sure that you are there's a goal setting framework so everybody knows what kind of work they should be focused on, that there are systems in place for accounting and finance so that your coffers don't run dry while you're trying to do all this work. There are systems for hiring people and interviewing people and bringing talent into the organization, systems for the way products are created and delivered. All these things, all of those structures ensure that there's predictability, but also distributed leadership. I mean, the way that structure really becomes, really brings an organization together insofar as if one person in the structure steps out, the structure still exists. So
Yeah.
you're not dependent on one leader or one point of failure, a single point of failure. You have structures in place to account for anything that might happen or go wrong, or an opportunity that might come by that you want to chase. So I think aligning those structures with your strategy is so critical.
Yeah. No, and I think the health one is a great example because most of us know if you have to think about it, if it's 5:30 in the morning and your alarm goes off and you're like, am I going to the gym? Most of the time the answer is no. but
Right.
but if you're just really clear, this is what happens. I get up and I go and it's a decision you've already made, it's part of your routine or
Yeah.
structure, then the likelihood that you'll go unless there's a very big reason not to, a bad snowstorm or you're feeling sick or something, it's just more likely that you'll actually do the things that you have identified as being important or necessary for your overall health and happiness. So it's a really great analogy. What do you see as unusual about how you do this or approach this work?
Well, I think it's been interesting. Certainly, there have been organizational maturity models that have come before us, but I don't think anyone has, or at least in our research, we have not seen someone, lay out kind of the prescription for growth and organizational growth and development. So our model is less a look back, but more of here's what we prescribe at each stage of growth that your organization should look like. Here's what your culture should look like. Here's what you should be thinking about with, here's when you need to make sure you have a goal setting framework in place. Here's when you might begin to have an HR talent management function in place. So our model is, I think, more prescriptive and helping leaders to see what's next so that they can plan for it rather than to be reactive. And so that's what I hope anyway.
I think that's great. It's always, in my opinion, in my observation and experience, much better to anticipate, even if you can't anticipate everything, but you can give yourself a little more leeway for dealing with the bumps and the changes that come along.
I also think that one of the things we do well is to be really honest up front with folks to say that, hey, your skills aren't necessarily going to be what's needed at each stage of growth. So if we can just admit that on the front end, we can be really clear about where to plug you in so that you are both valued and you feel like you're adding value and we value you. We want to be sure that people kind of find that sweet spot. But I think as people work in different types of organizations, you naturally gravitate towards where your strengths are. Some people are builders, some people are maintainers, some people are process-driven people, and those are needed at each stage. It just is a matter of where and in what role. And so if people can really be self-aware and understand that there's a period of time where they will be essential for the organization, but then the organization will naturally move on to a different stage where that might not be necessary for them, then I think that's really helpful to people. It's not, it's like dating. It's not you, it's me. It's not personal. It's just, let's figure out where you're best suited. And then we can find the next opportunity for you, which may not be at this company.
Right. I think that's the alternate title for your book. Instead of Running the Gauntlet, it's not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's me. Right. It's not you, it's the organization. That's right.
There we go. What inspired you or you and Howard to create this process? I mean, lots of people have been leaders in organizations. Lots of people have acquired, been part of acquisitions, but they didn't decide to come up with a way of naming the process and a framework to support people. So there's something in you that inspired that behavior or choice. What was that?
Well, I mean, part of it is just I am kind of as we're talking about, I'm a process person. I love structure. So we had been doing this work for 10 years, and we were actually in San Francisco. It was a caffeine fueled In-N-Out burger night in a hotel, and we had fresh off meeting with a client, and we're doing some thought work around a particular project, and just we felt like we were seeing the same patterns over and over again, and we really wanted to codify those mostly for ourselves so that we would have a framework when we went into companies that we could make sure that we were kind of hitting the universe of things we wanted to talk about. And so we started with that, developing the 6 imperatives, and that became our internal rubric for evaluating organizations. But as we worked with more and more high growth companies, we started to see that the 6 imperatives shifted depending on the stage of growth. And so that we started, again, developed internally, but then working with clients, people found it really helpful. I have a good friend who I've never actually worked for or with, in a client relationship, but he was perusing our website and he called me and he's like, "Oh my God, I just downloaded this model that you guys have." He's a CEO. He's like, I'm using it for my strategic planning. I have a copy taped to my desk. It's so helpful. This is just, I can trace our company's journey on this. This is so clear, and he was an early champion. And so he was like, "You need to write this book." And so we just got a lot of support from folks who the model resonated with to say, you need to just get it out there. So we had fun. It was a fun journey. Really, really enjoyed the process, learned a lot in the process. But as my mother says, it will be a nice thing to have done.
Yeah, I get that.
It was challenging, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Worth it.
That makes sense. What are other things? Obviously, your book, it just came out. Are there other things happening in your business, or is that the thing you're most excited about right now?
Yeah. I mean, we're just having so much fun going and, being guests on podcasts like this, which is great. Doing some writing for a Fast Company and some other publications, and just excited to kind of get the word out and working and continuing to work with our clients, and always excited to have new clients as well, and connecting with people who are interested in this work. So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. For folks that are listening, how do they learn more, follow you, get in touch?
Sure. We have a website, which is www.peoplecap.com. Our contact information is on there. We'd love for folks to follow us on LinkedIn. I'm Meg Thomas Crosby on LinkedIn, and Howard Cleveland is my co-author and business partner. And we have a People Cap page on LinkedIn as well. So, and our email address and Calendly link are all on our website. So, love for folks to reach out and connect.
Thanks. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for tuning in to Business as Unusual. Remember, in this ever-evolving world of modern business, it's not about fitting in. It's about standing out. See you next time. Stay curious, stay innovative, and always keep it unusual. I hope you enjoy the show. I love making it. If you did enjoy it, consider hopping over to the review portion of the platform you listen on and letting other people know about it. Or share the episode or the entire show with a friend, or subscribe to the show. Definitely reach out, get on my newsletter, follow me on social media, and let me know what you like, what you don't like, and what you'd like to see in the future. While we love our guests, appearance on the Business as Unusual podcast or any Bicurean consulting production is for information purposes only and is not to be considered an endorsement of their business practices, or character. Please properly vet anyone you find through this podcast and generally before you do any business with them. Thank you for listening.